truth, this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it, it's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word itself approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken.
All right, and shalom to each and every one of you. We're so glad to have you with us. This is yours truly, Apostle V.W. Jones Sr., right here on the Proceeding Word. Well, we're going to get started with our lesson for the day, expectation of righteousness. That's right. You might want to join somebody and have somebody come in today so we can finish part 2 of part 3 on the expectation of righteousness. Now, we've been dealing with this ever since we started some time back, dealing with what was known as, in fact, Romans chapters number 8 and through 10. So today we're going to talk about that in a grander way, and I'm hoping that you all can tune in and lock your hearts and your minds. And moderators, make sure everybody gets a microphone to come up today. There might be a chance for a good dialogue rather than just my monologue. Those of you who are viewing in on Facebook and on YouTube and on IG, we want you to remember, please hit the heart sign and the like sign. We need to know how many of you are out there doing what you do with us, and we're here to be a blessing to your lives as well as you being a blessing to ours, and let's all be a blessing to Elohim. Expectations of righteousness. So let me put this on the screen so we can get right into it. In the Bible, you have, and you guys, you have me on location today, so it's a wonderful thing. But we want to make sure that you look, and special announcement, special announcement. We will also be on location on this coming Sunday. We'll be in New York, teaching there with Bishop Brooks and that group, EHB. So that'll be a 12 p.m. service. Just follow all of the actual invitations that you get. They give you the right time in case some of you decide to not follow the instructions and just automatically assume it'll be a late service on Sunday. It'll be 12 p.m. Eastern EST, 12:30 EST. So make sure you pay attention to that. All right, that will be for tomorrow after Sabbath service, and you know how we do. So I'm hoping to see you guys there as well, because we'll start the teaching and finish the teachings that we've begun there on that series as well. All right, now let's get quickly into our study for today. Romans chapter number 10, very interesting passage of the writ, gives us something to consider and look at, and I want you to pay attention to it. Romans chapter 10 says, "My brethren, my heart's desire and prayer for Israel is that they might be saved. For I bear them record that they have a zeal for Elohim, but not according to the knowledge of Elohim." Now, we talked about this in a great length on this past broadcast, where we talked about the fact that even Paul, the Apostle Paul, is saying that his own people, is where in fact he is saying, "I am an Israeli. These are Israelis. My prayer to Elohim after my road to Damascus experience is that Israel might be saved." So these things are very important for us to comprehend, embrace, and look forward to. So I want to make sure you get this and don't let anything distract you, because it's extremely important that Paul is talking about his own people, and that though they were given the Torah, they've been given the word of Elohim, they've actually been given the Messiah, they too still have an issue. And Paul says, my prayer is that Israel is saved. So we want to make sure we don't think that we are so above everything that though we are Christians, we are the ones who should be, in fact, feeling entitled that we're going to make it in, and everything will be okay. Paul's prayer, Romans chapter 10, verse number 2, goes on to indict and make this statement very clearly, that my prayer and my heart's desire and my prayer to Elohim is for Israel, and that they might be saved. Well, I thought they had the Torah. I thought they had the temple. I thought they were Solomon and David's people. Understand, just like you and I today in modern day church, just because you go to church and you have a pastor and you might feel you got the revelation, you can have all the information but no application, then there becomes an issue with your salvation. He is telling you, I have been in faith with this group for a long time, and there is no way I can get away from it. At the end of the day, I now have met Messiah on the road to Damascus. I've had some priests, Levites with me on that journey, and at the end of the day, I find myself now realizing I was persecuting the Messiah we were looking for, and now that I know that, years later, The people that I've been going to church with, I grew up with, I was raised with, they knew what I knew before I knew what I know now. So my prayer is that my buddies, my church people, my bishop, my right rev, my prelate, my Gadol Kohanim, my prayer is that Gamaliel and all of Israel, having had the Torah, played with it so long, demeaned it, menialized it, trivialized it, that we don't just become ceremonial, but we be saved. Because I was persecuting and arresting anybody who was teaching and preaching anything that Yeshua HaMashiach was teaching. I had to have this is Paul's real statement. I had to have Adonai come to me on the road to Damascus, bright light shine about me, and by virtue of that bright light, now in fact put me in the position and or the condition to where I could see who this was. And I said, Adonai, who are you? Now, I talked a lot about that in the last broadcast, but I want to talk a little bit about it now before we move on to a more important point. He actually had to have Adonai, the word. The priests that were with Paul on the road to Damascus, they knew the presence of Adonai. That's why when the light shone round about them, people say, oh, they were thrown off their horses by this great light. They weren't thrown off their horses. They abased themselves because they knew the presence of their God. They knew the presence of Adonai. So they abased themselves in the presence of Elohim. And then it was Adonai, our Elohim, that had to introduce the Apostle Paul to, in fact, Yeshua. Because when Paul went down and the Levites that were with him, Paul says, Master, Adonai, what would you, Adonai, he said, he goes, the light comes, Paul gets off his horse, the Levites all get off of their horse, because that's who was traveling with Paul to arrest people speaking against the truth, speaking against the temple. They were Levites that were with Paul. Caiaphas sent them with Paul so they could arrest people. They had the actual subpoenas to arrest people that Paul felt were going against what the Torah was. So the Levites came with them to help arrest the people. They all knew the presence of Elohim because they were all tabernacle responsible, temple responsible. So the presence of Adonai overshadowed them on the road to Damascus. They all got down, laid prostrate on the ground, and said, Adonai, who are you? They knew who he was. But what was interesting was there another entity there that they had not identified. And he says, it is I, Yeshua, whom you're persecuting. Paul is like, oh, snap. You mean to tell me I'm out here in a whole full-blown paid-for campaign to arrest anybody speaking Adonai? And it is Adonai speaking Yeshua. It is, and Yeshua is the Mashiach. And Paul is embarrassed. Adonai blinds his eyes, tells him then to go to a Gentile, not a Jew, not a high priest, not a Kohanim, not a Pharisee, not a Sadducee, but go to a Gentile. And in 3 days, they're going to lay hands on you. Your eyes are going to open up. Then Paul goes 3 years into the deserts of Asia Minor to reset himself with who introduced himself. I'm not being funny. I know some of y'all Sabbath, but I'm not in Sabbath yet. But like one of the rappers said, in the world of hip-hop, they said, look, let me reintroduce myself. My name is whatever. Now, I don't like what he named himself, but that's between him and Elohim. But what he does is he actually understands that, oh my goodness, the person I'm prosecuting and persecuting is the person I should be submitted to. Wow. So Paul, Romans chapter 10, let's get back into the writ. Let me pull it up for you. Those of you who are on Clubhouse, make it your business to go right over to VWJ on YouTube or VWJ Ministries on Facebook and look at the Bible as I have it up for you so you can read it while we go along. My brethren, my heart's desire and my prayer is that they might be saved. Who is they? Israel. Now, I need you all who are on Facebook to give me a thumbs up if you guys can hear me okay. Clubhouse, I need you to let me know y'all can hear me okay as well. I know I've got some background noise because we're on location, but I want to make sure we get this information to you. So if I can get moderators or whomever can help me, all right, I see some of the mods helping me. Anybody who's out there on Facebook land, let me know y'all can hear me okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Norris. I appreciate you. Hey, Mary Walker, blessings and shalom to you guys. So let's get back to Romans chapter 10. Look at your your Bibles on the screen. It says, brethren, my heart's desire and prayer of Elohim is for Israel, that they might be saved. Well, remember, salvation came of the Jews, right? Why would he say that? Because he knows as a Jew, they've not been living salvation. They've been living religion and tradition of their forefathers who augmented the Torah that Yahweh gave to Moshe. And he's like, I, having that same watered down version of Torah, attacked the living Torah and has tried to persecute and prosecute anybody living the Torah. Peter, James, John, Paul, whoever, well, not Paul, Paul was doing it. And he says, hey, I realize we messed up. Look at verse 2. Because I bear them, my Israeli and Jewish brothers, witness, I bear record that they have a zeal for Elohim. Oh, they doing all this religious stuff, but not according to knowledge. And that's how we are right now in our church world within Christendom. We are doing all these things. And we are speaking all these different things. We got our own religions. We got our own faith. We're doing our own thing. Look at verse 3. For they who have a zeal, but not according to the knowledge of the Torah. Verse 3. For they are being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness, and they have gone about to establish their own righteousness, have not submitted themselves unto the righteousness of Elohim. For Messiah is the end of the Torah as it relates to righteousness. Not that he ended the Torah, not that he did away with the Torah, not that he made it so that you didn't have to do the Torah anymore. What he said was, he is the fullness. When you do righteousness and you end up like Messiah. He didn't say Messiah ended it. He said he is the end of what righteousness looks like. That's the goal. That's what you should covet. That's what you should monitor your life and moniker your life, or moniker your life after. Mark your life after. And that's why Paul says, mark them that walk upright before you. So look at this next piece, Romans chapter 10. Look at it. Romans 10, so important to catch. Romans 10 says, verse 5. For Moshe describes the righteousness which is of the law. Remember that. And y'all should type that in. Say righteousness is of Torah. The book of Torah is the book of instructions for what righteousness looks like. It's an important thing to know. Verse 5, again, pay close attention to what he says here. For Moshe describes the righteousness which is of the Torah, that the man which does these instructions of the Torah will live because of them. Now, we got it twisted in Christendom. Remember, we're talking about the expectation of righteousness. Well, this clearly defines what righteousness is. He says Moshe tried to describe to us what righteousness was, and it was in the writ of the Torah. And so this piece is important because any man who lives by these instructions of the Torah is living righteousness, and you live by that righteousness. More importantly, it's by the righteousness that you live the abundant life. This is significant to know, and I want y'all to put those threads on fire when you understand that the righteousness of Elohim is the instructions within the Torah. And when we live those instructions, again, do they change because of times and seasons and eras? They surely do. Well, we ain't got to live by the Torah. There ain't no Levites around. Well, Levi is no longer our high priest, is he? So people say, well, if you're living by the Torah, you're living by Judaism. I love all people born of Abraham, every person, every bloodline, Ishmael, Israel, now Christianity making Abraham the father of its faith because of the three monotheisms that Abraham is claimed to be the patriarch to. Listen, I love everybody who comes out of the bloodline of Abraham and the blood by faith, right? But at the end of the day, it is the instructions Elohim gave to Moshe that are the instructions of righteousness. So when we begin to do the instructions of righteousness, you see Elohim had a plan. So everybody thinks that because the Torah was given to Moshe, Moshe gave it to Aaron and the Levites to do all things tabernacle, that's the only way that righteousness gets done. Well, before there was a Moshe, before there was a Levi, there was in fact the word of Elohim to Moshe, to Noah, even to Adam. So here is the point of significance when we talk about the expectation of righteousness in Romans chapter 10. Every man who does not listen to the book of instructions goes about making their own list of instructions. Y'all know that's true. He said it right there in verse number 4. Y'all see it? I didn't make it up. It's right there. He said, verse 3, for they, the people who had the word, ignored the righteousness of Elohim, and they went about to establish their own version of righteousness, not having submitted themselves to the righteousness of Elohim. Wow, that hits different when you really pay attention to it. Therefore, Messiah was the ensample for what the righteousness looks like as a believer. Verse 5, Moshe then described the righteousness which is of the Torah, that the man which does the things of the Torah shall live, not just by them. Like, oh, you live by him because you're doing the law. That's legalism. No. What this means is that man, verse 5, part B, that man, Romans 10:5, part B, that man which does these things shall live because of these things. They live by these things. They live the abundant life that was promised by living the righteousness. Remember Deuteronomy chapter 28? Let me help you real quick. Look at Deuteronomy 28. It hits different when you learn this. We'll come back to Romans 10:5 in a minute, but go to Deuteronomy chapter 28. I'll help you so it's quicker. Look at Deuteronomy 28 verse 1. And it shall come to pass. This is the Torah. This is Moshe writing what Yahweh is telling him for the children of Israel and their instructions. And in this passage, he makes it clear the intention of what the righteousness does. Verse 1, Deuteronomy 28, Devarim 28:1. And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto the voice of Yahweh your Elohim, i.e. the word I've given you, to observe, to do all his mitzvah, all of his commandments, which I command you this day, the giving of the Torah, that Yahweh, our Elohim, will set you on high above all nations of the earth. This is how you will live. Get it? If you live by this righteousness, if you obey the righteousness, you'll live by the righteousness. What's it mean to live by the righteousness? Verse number 2, all these blessings shall come on you. All these blessings shall overtake you if you hearken, if you listen to the voice of Yahweh your Elohim. The voice of Yahweh your Elohim is his word. That's the Torah. The instructions he's giving you, obey them, hearken to them, do them. Not just hear them, but observe them to do them. Verse number 5, he says, verse number 4 says, your body will be blessed. Verse number 3, pardon me, we're in verse number 3. Blessed shall be your city. Blessed shall you be in the field. Blessed shall you be in the city. Blessed shall you be in the field. Verse 4, blessed shall be the fruit of your body, and the fruit of your ground, and the fruit of your cattle, and the increase of your kind, and the flocks of your sheep. These are ways you're going to be living. This is how the life you have is affected when you own and honor the writ. Verse 5, blessed shall be your basket and your store. Blessed shall you be when you come in and when you go out. Blessed will you be, verse 7 says, Yahweh will cause your enemies that rise up against you to be smitten before your face, for they shall come out against you one way and then flee before you 7 different ways. That's how you'll live. Somebody say, I want to live like that. I want my enemies that come up against me to meet the righteousness of me, and the righteousness of Elohim in me is the battle that they face, no longer me. The battle's not mine, it's Yahweh's. When you live by his words, when you observe to do his instructions. So when he was saying this, and y'all know the rest of this passage, I can keep going down through verses 14, but you get what he's saying. Yahweh shall command the blessings upon your storehouses. Anything that you put your hands on, Yahweh shall bless you in your land that he's going to give you. Verse 9, he will establish you a holy people unto himself if you what? Keep his commandments. Verse 10, all the people of the earth are going to see you and call you by the name of Yahweh, and they shall be afraid of you, reverence you, fear you at actually know that there is something about you when you obey his righteousness, because righteousness makes people attract to you. I promise you there's a difference in lifestyle. Verse 11 says he'll make you plenteous in goods. That's how you'll live, right? Plenteous in goods. Your fruit of your body, fruit of your cattle, fruit of your ground. Yahweh shall be, and he is, swears this unto the fathers to give you. Yahweh shall open his good treasure to you. The heaven's going to rain in your land in its season. Blessed will be the work of your hand. You're going to lend unto many nations. You will not borrow. That's how you will live. So when you read Romans chapter number 10, and I want to stop there because I don't want to get stuck. I can go in the Torah all day. So Romans chapter 10, verse 5, pay attention to what he says. Chapter 10, verse 5. Moshe described the righteousness which is of the law, of the Torah. You just read the Torah. Deuteronomy 28 is the Torah. It's not just the Bible, it's the Torah. For Moshe describes the righteousness, which, by the way, is in the Torah. That man, that woman, which does the things of the Torah, shall live by those things and by the dictates of those promises of the righteousness of Elohim. And that man shall live by them. That's what that means. You will be able to live by them. That's the type of life you'll live. You know, I'm living my best life. I ain't going back and forth with you jokers. I'm living my best life. Yeah, no, this Deuteronomy 28 life is how you'll live if you shall observe to do all the things written in the Torah, all the things written in the book of instructions. Again, I re-emphasize, and I'm going to come off the Bible to give y'all this from my soul before we finish Romans 10:5. Yes, has time changed from Moshe? It most certainly has. Have times been different since Moshe's day? It most certainly has. But here is the catch about it. Times change all the time, but the word is what made time. The word is what made time change. So the era you're in today, that's why he says the word is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Let me put it in context for you. That means yesterday, today, there's clearly a change. Forever, there's clearly a change. So what happened yesterday and what happens today and what will happen tomorrow, all of this is changes. And you and I know that he says the word doesn't change in any of it. Though time changes, the word made time. But whatever changes come with time, the word doesn't change because it made time and it mandates and sanctions the change. But we get caught up in the practicality and the functionality of the word, and when our religious, having sought our own righteousness, we say, oh, you're not saved by works, you're saved by grace. Well, grace, people, is the power to do the work. Grace is the power to fulfill the instructions. Grace is the wisdom, the wit, the know-how to get those things that are in there as instructions accomplished. So we don't like when people play the radio and play the game about, what they've done and what they've not done and what is of Elohim and what's not of Elohim. I want to make sure you guys get this with clarity. Everything that is Elohim, everything that is in his word, everything that is in his space, everything that is in his place, what you and I do, how we do it, what it looks like, why it's done that way, who it is that makes it happen for us. It is Elohim's word, Elohim's will that gets this done. Now, that instruction, when you live his way, getting it done is bountiful. Getting it done is vivacious. Getting it done is libacious and vibrant. Okay, I'll get the words eventually right. So I want to make sure we're clear. Just give me a second. I'll phone on Do Not Disturb, because people keep trying to call me while I'm doing this broadcast, and I need to make sure we stay focused. How about that right there? All right, Clubhouse, I hope you guys can hear me better now without the distractions. But are you guys learning anything? Remember, I need your help. I need your help. Light up these threads with some comments because of where we are in this process, okay? Now, righteousness about what is the expectation of righteousness? Not wearing a dress a certain length, not wearing no makeup, not wearing clothes, watch this, clothes that do not show your cellulite. Now, is that socially a problem? Is that socially maybe unright? It may be, fashion statement wise. But that's not your unrighteousness. Your unrighteousness is when you don't obey the word of Elohim. Now, is it considered unrighteousness because social standards say you should look this way? Social fashions say you should look this way. Social trends say you should do this thing. Yeah, so, you can call those sins, but then they have this concept called cardinal sins, which that's a whole nother concept, but it does have a relative piece here. And so the expectation of righteousness isn't the robe you wear, isn't the cross you put under your pec, isn't the collar you put on your neck, isn't the satchel and the Bible that you carry on your dashboard or put in your purse, or that little vial of Pompeii oil or Alberto oil that you got in your keychain and you sling it all over everybody when you see them. Your righteousness is not about you walking around preaching Jesus. That's not your righteousness. That is what exudes out of you because of your righteousness. Your righteousness is obeying, like Yeshua, how he obeyed the word. And did the word change on him from the time Moshe was alive and Yeshua was alive? The world changed. Has it changed since Yeshua and you and I are alive? Yes, major changes. So the word doesn't change no matter how the world changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So here's the catch. We say, oh, you're not saved by grace or works, you're saved by grace. Well, here's the catch. Grace is what helps you do the work. What work? That means you have a list of instructions because you don't know what to do. If you say you serve God, how you gonna know what to do? Well, he osmosisly speaks to me like he spoke to Abraham, and I just get up and I go. And I open the door and he say, turn left. I turn left. What spirit are you listening to? Do you know? That's why Elohim didn't leave us relegated to being subjected to men who made you think, oh, do this and you serve God. He wrote it out in the writ. Here, guys, just do this. That's why Messiah said, listen, all that we did give you, quite frankly, I can help you hack it in this modern day. Yeshua's day was modern, right? In this modern day, hang everything I taught you on these two principles. If you love Elohim with your whole heart, mind, body, and soul, you're going to keep his commandments, because if you love me, you keep my commandments. Secondly, he says, and if you love your neighbor like you love yourself. All of that is called sitka. That is called sitka. Yahweh sitkanu. That's the righteousness and the charity and the care and the welfare for other people. So that's a commonwealth mindset. So when he said hang all the laws on these two, he wasn't saying eliminate 611 laws and leave only two as your go-to. He's saying, no, if you search after Elohim with your whole heart, mind, body, and soul, which is in there, and you love your neighbor as you love yourself, which is in there, you will ultimately end up doing all 613. But if you're doing them, you're working. Somebody say doing an instruction is working. Can y'all type that? Doing an instruction equals work. I'm not Rihanna, but work. When you gonna? And y'all get your mind in the gutter. So at the end of the day, when you follow the instructions of Elohim to do that, you're working, because you have to know what it is you're doing in the earth. Now, I'm being funny. Y'all not going to like that, but I'm being funny. I like my jokes. Y'all going to have to laugh more often. I need a laughter emoji somewhere that was good. Say, Apostle, that was actually funny. You ain't got to do it, but I hope you would. So listen. When you, in fact, give yourself over to the instructions of Elohim, if you love me, you keep my commandments. Commandments, the Hebrew word is mitzvah. That word defined means, in fact, instructions, a charge, an assignment. So watch this. If you are going to be a part of a faith system that now says we're not under works, we're under grace. Grace is power to do work. Hello. Secondly, we're not under works, we're under grace. Okay, works means that there is a working of something, right? But here's the catch. If you're under grace, you're being empowered to do something. Yeah, it starts to break down, doesn't it? Last part. This is the deep part. Well, if you're going to say that in the New Testament and hold on to that as a New Testament believer, we ain't got to worry about that. We're not saved by works. You're not. But watch. Elohim says, without faith, it is impossible to please Elohim. So how can you please Elohim if you don't follow instructions Elohim gave you? Sitting on your duff doesn't please the Father. Laying on your face, snotting and Googling, talking about I'm fasting and I'm in a full 30-day, 40-day fast, that doesn't please the Father. That pleases you. The only fast that pleases the Father is called Sukkah. It's called Yom Kippur. That's the fast that pleases the Father. And then there is one that you have to understand goes on in the time of your week, in your work week. And in your time of your work week, that is the Sabbath day. So many of you who are already in your Sabbath, you're in a fast. You're in an Elohim sanctioned fast. No, you still eat, you still drink, but you're fasting from the world. You're not fasting to any other thing, but you're fasting from the world. You're not eating because he told you to eat everything that he made. You're not drinking because he told you can drink whatever it is you need. Be wise, don't be gluttonous. That's a commandment. Hello. But you do eat. This whole thing about fasting, y'all, in establishing your own righteousness as Christendom at large, you have gone out thinking that makes you righteous. You got people thinking that if you don't fast and pray, you ain't gonna be saved. And you took Messiah's words way out of context. Messiah told his own disciples when they couldn't cast the spirit out of a boy, all of them laid hands on this boy. All of them prayed for this boy. But the reason Messiah understood it was because he had done what they had not been consistent in doing before they linked up with him to do real work. They kept Sabbath technically, but not consistently. So when Messiah said these things that I just did, cast that spirit out that boy, when you apparently couldn't, is because I fast according to these things come but by fasting and conversation with the Father. Meaning fasting and prayer. Listen. Fasting means a consecrating. It means a coming aside. Sabbath is you coming aside. Sabbath is you consecrating. Did we miss this or what? Watch. These things come forth but by fasting and prayer. Prayer is an open, honest conversation with the Father. When do you do that? In Sabbath. What? Right. But we trying to be deep, trying to get people to stop eating, have bad breath so we can sell Tic Tacs. I don't know why the church ain't making money on Tic Tacs and Bellaments and Halls, because them big, them big mints y'all put in your mouth, the big ones with they white with the red stripes and they peppermint, and y'all put them in your mouth and you be sucking them in church. You know every church got them, right? The big ones, some of them is airy, some of them is hard, they break your teeth, get you whole, got to go to the dentist when you get done. We do some stuff. We do way too much in church. Way too friggin' much in church. And everything we do, we should be getting shares and stock and stock option and dividends from the peppermint and the double mint and the orbit types of companies out there who sell fresh breath mints, because we fasted and praying, getting bad breath, getting all this stuff dry and dehydrated because we fasted and not Yah's way. I don't get how we miss the fact that he says, I know my plans concerning you. My plans are not your plans. So when Paul says in Romans chapter 10, I'm going to put on the screen so y'all can read it for the last time. Not the last time, but for any time. When Paul says this in Romans chapter 10, verse 5, he says, in verse 3, he tells you here, he says, listen, they are ignorant of Elohim's righteousness. They go about to establish their own righteousness. Our church has got you doing fasting the church's way because your pastor decided to sit up one night because he or she couldn't figure out what to do, and they felt, well, if I stop eating, God will speak to me. Yahweh does not operate on hunger fasts, y'all. Yahweh does not move because you decided to starve yourself. Maybe you thought because if you starved yourself, then God will come and heal and deliver you from starving yourself and talk to you. No, the food is sitting in front of you. He don't need you to starve yourself for him to hear you. He hears you when you obey his word. He hears you when you regurgitate his word. He hears you when you don't speak your word on his holy day. He told you to come and sit aside and be with him alone. Fast. That's what fasting is. Every seventh day, you pull yourself away from the world and you sit for 24 hours with the Father, and then he talks to you. And guess what? You're getting meat the world knows not of. That's why Messiah says, I have meat y'all know not of. Who fed it? Who gave him food? I got meat y'all know not of. This is what fasting is. This is where we got to start understanding. And we're doing way too much. Can I just get like about 20 people to type in way too much? Y'all know what it means, ... way too much. Y'all know what it means we doing way too much. Yahweh does not hear you because you on a hunger strike. You're seeking his pity. When Yahweh says, I want you to fast, it is only in Yom Kippur, coming up in this particular year, not long from now. The day of your time of fasting is going to be, and this is the day of your fasting. One is probably today if some of you are already in your fast season, but the actual feast season for fasting is right here on the screen in the red. See the one in the red at the bottom? All the way to the bottom, third from the bottom, it says Yom Kippur. That's why it's red. It's the most holy day of the year. If you're looking on the screen, you will realize Yom Kippur is the most holy day on the screen. That's right. It's the most holy day. It's in red because that's the day that Yahweh wants you to fast. Not just come along and talk to him, but also don't eat any other food because he's going to shift your whole diet. He's going to shift everything in your life every year. This is a natural yearly reset Elohim put in since the foundations of the world. He put it in since he gave us the Torah. So these are the instructions you work. Somebody say Torah, work. Matter of fact, I'm going to work on a meme. So when you say we're saved, we're not saved by works, we're saved by grace. Without faith, you can't please the Father. You only please him when you do what he says. And if you're not doing what he says, you're not working him, you're working you. And again, Romans chapter 10, verse 3, for being ignorant of what Elohim wants us to do, we end up going about to establish our own righteousness. So busy with our own righteousness, part B, verse 3, we have not submitted ourselves to the righteousness of Elohim. Now, the one thing I do miss about not being back in church buildings as often as we should be when I go like this, y'all that on Clubhouse can't see me, but those of y'all on YouTube and Facebook, y'all see me. I was slain. That was me being slain in the spirit. I needed a napkin ministry right there. Somebody just come fan me. That's what I miss about not being in a church setting as often and whatnot. But this is a broadcast, it's a podcast, a vlog anyway. But at the end of the day, I miss the napkin ministry, which of course, we still just did way too much with that. So at the end of the day, what is fasting? We have established our own righteousness. You're fasting because you heard your bishop say, I fasted for 90 days and God finally answered me. He was going to answer whether you fasted or not. Well, what about, oh no, you can't say that, man of God. What about Mordecai and Hadassah? What about Mordecai and Esther? No, Esther asked the people to consecrate themselves. 3 days of fasting. It wasn't like God told her to fast, to tell the people to fast. She was like, listen, let's, by what we understand, let's consecrate ourselves so Elohim has no reason to be with us. So now y'all think it was because they fasted that Elohim gave them an answer how to get a second edict to trump the edict of Haman? And if you don't know the theology, if you don't know the story, now you have a reason to go learn. Go back and study the story of Esther and Mordecai. Pay attention to the details. Elohim would have given them an answer anyway. Why? Because the Jewish people are his people. They were asking for Esther. She needed to know whether they was down with her. This is going to blow your mind, theologians. It's going to blow your mind. Pay attention. I got more of it to come, but watch this. When Ruth pardon me, Esther, was going before the Father, the people were begging her to go because you're the one closest to the king. You're in this man's lap, literally. And we can't get to him. And Haman has made this edict that on the 29th or whatever, we're going to can be killed and they can take our stuff at will. Go before God and talk to us. Now that's humans panicking. I just got a revelation. I can't give it to y'all right now. Y'all not ready for it. He said, that's human panicking. The humans began to panic about what Elohim is doing. And they're like, okay, God, you got to do it this way. You got to do it this way. And Mordecai is telling her, go before the king. Ask the king to stop it. Now, she does. Mordecai was right. You know, you should go and talk to the king and say, hey, this is what's going on. So we're going to do this. But it wasn't that Yahweh would not have given them what they needed. She asked for the fast primarily because of the fact that, okay, we need to be sort of kind of concentrated, right? Not that God was going to have them fast to give them the answer. She did it more so, watch this, that she would know the people were for real about this. If y'all serious about this, because I'm the one that got to go in here and get my head cut off. Because if I go in here, if I die, let me die, right? But they weren't going to get killed unless the people came and they had a fighting chance. She had none. Once she shut that door and went into that space and she was out of order, they cut her head off right there. She like, if y'all really with me, y'all consecrate yourselves for 3 days. Let me know y'all for real. Everybody get clean. Everybody thinking straight. And then let me go on before the Father. Y'all not going to talk to me today? Okay, that's cool. So now with this understood, I want you guys to realize that they went about establishing, in many cases, this fasting stuff that we do. I'm not against fasting. Fasting is always a healthy thing. Fasting is always a healthy thing. And though it's a healthy thing, I need you to understand it is not always the appropriate thing to do. Because unless you're detoxing your body medically, fasting is not recommended since you're supposed to eat to be healthy. Hello, everybody. You fasting and walking around with bad breath, and I'm an ex-crack addict, so I know what it looked like to be walking around with your cheeks all sucked in, and your eyes all bulged out, and you got gray everywhere. You ain't got no oil on you because you've been looking like Pookie the crackhead. You know, that's how some of y'all look when you're fasting. You just look ridiculous. That's why he told y'all, put oil on yourself for the time of fasting. Don't look like you fasting. Grease yourself up. Look like you're still in control. It's only for 1 day. You're not eating anything. You're giving your body a reset, and then you're drinking more water, and you're drinking the word. So you're drinking natural water and spiritual water. That's in heaven and in the earth. Get it? But we just do way too much because we think theologically we understand a whole bunch of stuff. Because if Paul is saying, my prayer to Elohim is that Israel might be saved. Take a minute and think about that rather than going off on a preconceived idea that Israel already is saved. Because they got to put the work in of obeying the writ too. He just used Israel to show the rest of the world that if you do it, this is what I'll do for you. Israel made it sometimes, and Israel missed the mark most of the times. Salvation did come from the Jews, Israel, because Uda was the tribe Yeshua came from. And then what did he do? 100% he did the word to show us what it looks like. So they that exercise themselves by the word will live by the dictates and the promises and the provisions and the protections of the word. Oh man, that hit different, don't it? Don't that just hit different?
Yes, it does.
That just hits so much different. So you fasting is to be fasting, meaning to be consecrated, pulled aside, to come in and talk with the Father. Messiah told her, casting out the spirits of that little boy, he says, these things, my Talmudim, my disciples, come forth only by fasting and prayer. Those that he had with him, yes, they were still under temple worship, and they got real lax about how they were keeping the feasts and how they were keeping, the Sabbath day, and they'd still find reasons and loopholes to do stuff on the Sabbath, and they find loopholes not to go down to Jerusalem on the Moedim. That's why Paul had to come out and say, listen, I beg you therefore, my brethren, by the mercies of Elohim, that you present your bodies. What does that mean? Go to church? No, go present your body to Elohim when he's at the temple, when he was at the tabernacle. Present your bodies. It's our reasonable service because it's written out in the Torah. So if you say we're saved by grace and not by works, then going down to the tabernacle is an actual instruction, and you're graced to get there. That's work. Like it or not, that's the definition for work. Not knocking on doors. It's funny to me how people who preach that we're saved, this grace doctrine, but they're the first ones to go knocking on doors. And I don't know about y'all, but anybody been out there knocking on doors and putting on all these crusades, and y'all tired as all out when you get done? You're like, whew, God, Father. And then you got church tomorrow because you usually did it on Saturday, when everybody was supposed to be off, and right after or before the football game or the baseball game or the soccer game or the volleyball game or the swimming meet or the track meet or the basketball game, and then you get together with those evangelists who went out there, and y'all knocking on doors in the sun, in the cold, in the rain, and y'all get done, y'all like, man, I'm so tired. Whew, God. And then you got to go to work in the morning, and you got to go to church in the morning. That's work. And Yahweh never told you, hear me clearly, Yahweh never told any Christian, Yeshua never told any Christian to go knocking on the door of the unbeliever. See how my eyes got? That's how some of y'all looking right now. What? He never told you to knock on the door of an unbeliever. Never. He didn't say it then. That's not what he means now. He never meant that. He told his disciples to go knocking on the doors of them who are supposed to be looking for him as the Messiah coming. If they believe that I am come, give them shalom. If they don't, pull back your shalom, and it's worse for them because they looking for me than it would be for Sodom and Gomorrah, who wasn't looking for me. And yet I delivered them because I sent Abraham just because Lot was a part of their citizenship. That gets deep, and I need theologians who don't like that to let me know you don't like it, and those who love that, let me know you love it. We do way too much. Way too much. And swear, because we have done what verse 3 says right here in the writ. Look at verse 3, Romans 10:3. I'm going to put on screen so y'all can see it again. Look at what we do at Romans 10:3. Look at it. For they being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness. Everybody in Christendom has been told, do not read the Torah, do not read the Old Testament, except you're trying to put on a play or except you're trying to justify something historically. That's for the Jews. That's what they did. The Torah was never given to the Jews. There was not a Jew on the planet. Moshe is not Jewish. David is not Jewish. Aaron was not Jewish. Miriam was not Jewish. Samson was not Jewish. Samuel was not Jewish. Adam was not Jewish. These instructions were for humanity. When you obey his word, he says you all went about, because we've been taught in Christendom today, you ain't got to read the Torah. That's for them. It wasn't. It was for humanity. If you ain't human, I know AI making a real big push and trying to change the narrative of a lot of stuff. But, even artificial intelligence will tell you all the dynamics of what the faith of Torah is all about. And even though they're coming up with artificial intelligence, they're cloning foods. You got seedless grapes. You got seedless watermelons. Y'all need to know that's produced stuff. If it has no seed in it, it has no life. And y'all sucking these things up and buying them up all over the country. Seedless grapes, seedless watermelon. You don't eat that stuff. Yahweh says, I gave you fruit, I gave you vegetation that has seed in it. If there's no seed in what you're eating, there's no life in that. I'm pausing for effect. Yeah, I'm expecting to see something typed in the chats. I want to know what how that hits. There's no seed, there's no life. The life is in the seed. Now, are there some manufactured pharmaceutical advantages and ways of fusing in some of the nutrients that are said to be a part of and associated to that particular vegetation? Yes, but there's no life in it. Man, get them ones that got seed, because that's real life. That's natural. That's what your body registers. You know, that's what your body registers, because it's organic. It's what Elohim created for your organisms. That other stuff is synthetic. Y'all learning anything? Now, the expectation of righteousness. The expectation of righteousness. This stuff gets good to me when you really pay attention to it. The expectation of righteousness. Now watch. Here's where we go. 10, verse 5. Chapter 10, verse 5. Well, let me just skip through 3 again. For they, being ignorant of Elohim's righteousness, went about establishing their own righteousness, having not submitted themselves to the righteousness of Elohim. We were talking about the fact that we have been in our churches for so long, and we were told from our churches, don't worry about reading the Old Testament. Don't worry about reading the Torah. And so that's just not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be reading the Torah. We're supposed to be reading the Old Testament. We're supposed to be reading it, drinking it in. That's the conversation with Elohim we want to have. And when you don't want that, you're not having a conversation with the Father. Why are you going on this, apostle? Yeshua said to the disciples, he told them, go out, tell the people I'm here. When you see sickness, if they believe, they'll be healed. Man brings his son, couldn't get healed. Why? Because the boy was deaf and the boy was dumb. It wasn't the disciples didn't have what he needed, it was that he couldn't hear it. The thing was, they had not been practicing as consistently as they should, which was a teaching moment for Messiah to his Talmudim. You guys, keep the fasts. Keeping Sabbath, that's how you're fasting. Keeping the Moedim, that's how you're fasting. Moedims are feasts, exactly, but you're fasting from the world, not from food. Sabbath, you're fasting from the world. All of your petty friends and your gossiping mom and your cussing dad and anything that's not like Elohim. You're fasting from the world. Your mom, your dad, your baby, your children, all of them are people of the world. And if they're not seeing it like you seeing it and rocking with you like that, you might want to fast from them too. You got responsibilities to cook for them and clean for them and be there as a parent, providing for them protection. Yes, you do all of that, but you're fasting from any worldly concept in any Sabbath. That is a fast. You're consecrating. And then these things come forth only by fasting and prayer. Prayer is an open, honest conversation with the Father. So Isaiah chapter 58, verse 13 and 14 tells you that when you do not on this day your own thoughts or speak your own words, you will be found as delighting in the Father. And you're having a conversation with the Father. He already knows what you got need of. He just wants to converse with you. That's prayer. Somebody write, prayer is a conversation with Elohim. Type it in. Prayer equals conversation with Elohim. Prayer equals conversation with Elohim. Somebody might want to be deep and say fasting. Consecration from the world. That's what you're doing. There was only one fast that Elohim has called for you and I to take. It's in the Torah. It's an instruction that you should work. But we talking about we're not saved by works. But you fasted 90 days at a time, that's work. Trust me, that's work. You working hard not to open up that Kit Kat bar. You working hard talking about, I need a break from fasting. Give me a Kit Kat bar. I need a break. Give me a Snickers. I need a break. I'll scream for some ice cream in the middle of your work hard, unnecessarily affecting your body a way Yahweh never told you to, because you felt that was righteousness. I'm talking about the expectation of righteousness. I'm not talking about your own. So when you're fasting in prayer, you're coming to the Father, separating from the world, consecrating yourself into Him, and then at the same time, you are literally conversing with Him. In that, I can tell you what's going on. So when Messiah told His disciples, these things come forth but by fasting and prayer, that's exactly what He meant. When you're in time of consecration with the Father, and you're in time of communication with the Father, He'll show you, like He did Adam, what's wrong with that person, what's wrong with that child, what you don't see in the spirit because you're looking at the flesh. Man sees on the outward, but Elohim looks inside the heart. Y'all not going to talk to me. In that Sabbath, in that consecration, in that prayer, in that conversation, He shows you literally what's wrong with that boy, what's wrong with that girl, why they acting like that. He shows it to you. So when the disciples who had been lax and not as consistent, even though the last 3 years they've been with Messiah, sitting here, doing the things that we need to do, trying to be in Him, but thinking that the way we fast is the way Yahweh wants us to fast. Our righteousness is not His righteousness. So fasting and prayer, the way we do it is work. If you've ever sat with us through a Yom Kippur, it goes so fast. And you don't even realize you haven't eaten unless you came in just to do the task. Because when you come into it to be compliant with Him, you end up with meat and nutrition they know not of. I promise you. You fasting for 30, 40 days, Yahweh never called for it. He said He gave you a mouth. He gave you carnivorous teeth back there for those of you who think you aren't supposed to eat vegetations. If He wanted you to eat just vegetations, you would not have carnivorous teeth in your mouth. Miss me with it. I know you were grown with it. I know that's what you feel you should do. Maybe that's your preference and you have that right. But you do have carnivorous teeth because you're supposed to tear flesh. Otherwise, He would never given us lamb to eat on purpose. He didn't say the vegetarians eat impossible meat or plant-based lamb. He said you eat lamb. Vegetarian, pescatarian, vegan, all the other little versions and stuff. You got carnivore teeth back there. Whatever the value of meat as you see it scientifically, and though there are some very great values that our vegetarian community and vegan and pescatarian community has rendered us scientifically, great information, but you are not to abstain from meat. You can. Does that protein match other protein or plant-based? It may or may not. That's something that science measures out. But Elohim did not have all that. He told man with carnivorous teeth, when you get done, I want you to go and have a meal to me. He told Moshe, he says, listen, kill a lamb, get its blood, make sure you got it all straightened out, put that blood on the doorpost and ledges of the house, go inside, don't boil that lamb. I want you to roast that lamb with fire, and then I want you to eat the lamb. He did not say vegetarians got to pass. He did not say pescatarians got to pass. He did not say vegans got to pass. Again, We have gone about to establish our own righteousness. I'm going to get a whole bunch of hate mail, but I love y'all from my whole soul. And I'm not against vegetarian, pescatarian, and or veganism or any other version of meatless society. Just understand, Yahweh gave you carnivorous teeth for a reason. There are herbivore teeth, and then there are carnivorous teeth. Think about it. But because somebody filled you with information, we got filled with information, and we started having some problems in our bodies, which, a plant-based diet and plant-based protein is a very good thing. I eat a lot of plant-based protein because I don't want all the caloric intake, especially now that I'm keeping my body in a better way. But I need meat. I'm going to have meat. Well, we don't need it, pardon me, because you got other beasts of the field who don't eat meat, and their protein is from plant-based. But I'm not going through the woods and getting poison ivy to pick a leaf and chew on with some berries. I got to fight thorns and stickers with them. Sorry. Father, keep giving me meat. I'm good with the chicken. Chicken come from heaven. Glory to God. Hallelujah. They come from heaven. They foul the air. Glory. So, back to my point. That was funny. You don't have to laugh. I know y'all having y'all having a rough week, but it is what it is. So we do way too much, and this is the expectation of righteousness. No, the foul do come from heaven, because the waters are now our heaven. So the water that was around the earth, when Yahweh separated and put air in between it, those beasts came from those fowl. They came from water. That water is our heaven. That's why we have H2O. But yeah, that's cool. Now, let me finish this off. Our righteousness is not his. Never will be, never can be. So really skim through this. Moshe described the righteousness, verse 5, Romans 10:5. No, what I was going to say to you guys was this, sorry. Everybody says that the law changed, or Yeshua came and changed it, he killed it. We're not supposed to do the works of the law and all that stuff because we can't wear two different fabrics, and y'all going to obey the law, obey all the law, and you still wearing polyester, and you still wearing cotton and wool, then that's against the law. You still cutting your hair, that's against the law, all that stuff. Times change. There's a principle and a spirit to the law. There's a spirit to the instructions. And all of this has to come where we need to understand that the word doesn't change. It allowed for all the changes of the world, but the word does not change. So you want to be conscious and mindful of that at all times as you go about your day, your space, your place, your times, all of that. And the word does not change. People told you in Christian, you don't read the Torah, you don't read the Old Testament, it was for the Jews. But here's something that changed. When Yahweh gave Moshe the Torah, the Levites were then given the assignment to teach all of the nation Torah, observance, and obedience, compliance. Levi did a bad job, ultimately over time. Initially, they were on it. Bang, 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 bang. Once it split and everybody got their piece and had their opinion to say, and they were feeling the favor of God and got complacent rather with what they had been getting from their compliance, they changed out. The priests started to bear over the people with the Torah. They started to control the people, and you know all the stuff that comes with power and the games that come with power, right? And so, at the end of the day, though Levi was responsible for that, something changed. And in that change that they allowed to happen, Yahweh fired Levi and gave them Yeshua. He is now our high priest. Just like Yahweh did with Saul and David. Saul was the first king after the nations of this world. And as he sat there as a nation leader, he started off on fire. Then he got the power in him to think he could do all this stuff. And Yahweh fired Saul and hired David. Y'all never saw that parallel? Yahweh hired Levi and hired Yeshua. Uda. Saul, Benjamite, fired. Uda, David, hired. Because the template Saul was setting wasn't the one Yahweh wanted. Thus we say David was a man after Elohim's own heart. You have a better template of how a righteous king rules the people. Saul had not given it yet. He lost his way while in his tenure. David, in his tenure, remained consistent. Now, any offspring from him, if they go astray, they have no justification for it, because you have a good example before you. See, David didn't go about establishing his own righteousness. Saul did. This touches hard, don't it? Yeah, that's what it kind of does. Well, I think we're going to need a part 3 of part 3. How about that? Y'all okay with that? Because I have not finished Romans 10, and we got a little ways to go. But this is the expectation of righteousness. I need to know from y'all. Do y'all want? Can you allow me to put forward a part 3 of part 3 of the expectation of righteousness, Romans chapter 10?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
That's 2 people.
Please.
I need more. Talk to me, YouTube. Talk to me, Facebook. Talk to me.
Yes, please.
Let's get at it. Because I don't want to give y'all nothing you don't want. If I just come in here like a lot of people do, like all of us really try to, we do most cases, don't realize it, start to, give people what we think they should have. If you don't want it, you're going to waste it. But if you actually say, no, I really want this, then you'll show up and you'll value what you receive. And that's why I need your permission to do so. Okay. I see y'all over in Facebook and YouTube land. Shalana, miss you. Get on the books. I'm not going to say it again, Shalana. Okay, Wanda Floyd, if you're going to be Ebonic, at least be proper Ebonic. It's one more gin. One more gin. G-I-I-N, not G-A-I-N. One more gain. No, that's a different verb. That means something different. I might have to, do something. That's a different verbiage. Okay. Regina Howard Norman said, she said, listen, we could do part 111 of part 111 if necessary. Thank you, Regina. That's hilarious. Oh, that's funny. Well, Wanda, again, if you're going to do it, it's one more gin. G-I-I-N. One more gin. All right. Well, I hear you, Longsworth. Good to have you with us today. I hope you guys are being edified. And I hope that you take the opportunity to understand that our righteousness should never be what we actually look to do. Romans 10 talks about the expectation of righteousness, and it tells you where righteousness is supposed to come from at its core. And verse 5 is very clean, very keen when he says it. We are to literally, what he says is we are to literally understand that the description for righteousness is in the Torah. And verse 5, we read it wrong. We thought it was the description of righteousness, which is of the law. Like, that's a negative thing. It's of the law. We don't do the law. We're not under works. We're under grace. Well, without faith, it's impossible to please the Father. To please him means you got to do some work. And the work you do is the instructions he gives. Well, where are the instructions he gives? Well, my instructions, I sit with God and I'm on my back patio and I'm drinking my Chablis, and then I get an inspiration of God, and I'm reading my Bible and I get an inspiration of God. Well, no disrespect, but Elohim does speak, but it's going to be out of his Torah. It's going to be out of his Torah. It's going to be out of his Torah. And if you don't know what his instructions are, how are you pleasing him? Messiah said it so profoundly. I did not come to destroy the Torah, nor the prophets who propagated the Torah. I came to show you how to live the Torah. Righteousness that caused him to be elevated is the Torah, not was, is. Because it's the same yesterday, today, and it will be the same when he comes back for the millennial reign. The word is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Whew. Let that sink in. Father, we thank you for your day. We thank you for this time. Those who've entered into their Shabbat, I pray you help them to fast unto you. No, they can eat anything they want in their refrigerators and in their cupboards, but they cannot eat anything from the world. Much like the fast you put Adam and Ishai on when you told them, don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Help us in the Shabbat not to eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Help us in Shabbat to focus on your words alone. Eat only that which is good today and experience that which is you and good. And those who have not yet entered into their Shabbat, we're asking you to help us to labor to enter into our Shabbat. And when we get in, help us to not eat the world. Help us to eat only your word. Fasting from the world, conversing with you in prayer. That's what prayer is, an open, honest conversation with you. And the only way we can have an open, honest conversation with you is if we're speaking your language and we're speaking your words. Help us to be able to discern. For the word of Elohim is sharper and powerful than any two-edged sword, piercing asunder from soul and spirit. And as I paraphrase, discerning the intents of every heart. Wow, that's how Messiah knew the boy had a deaf and a dumb spirit. Because he fasted with you consistently and he prayed with you consistently. And Sabbath permits those events. Thank you, Yahweh. It's been sitting in front of us all this time, but we went about our own way, establishing our own righteousness. All we like sheep went away our own ways. Help and thank you for bringing us back to you. We're coming stronger, more consistently, more boldly, and mandatorily than ever before. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of you, Yahweh, who is our Elohim. And we bless you and thank you for that now. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Now, Zion, may Yahweh bless you all and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. May Yahweh lift his countenance upon you and grant you all 13 attributes of his shalom. Hold for this announcement.
Thank you for tuning in today. I hope that this message has been a blessing to your very life and your soul, and more importantly, your walk with the King. Well, we have come to the end. I hope that you would consider becoming either a partner with us in ministry, or if you're not already a kingdom citizen, consider becoming one. By doing that, you can sow into this ministry so that we are able to continue to teach this type of ministry at a grand scale. Join us on all of our social media platforms and visit our webpage to make your contributions sure. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Shalom.
If you need truth, this is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it. It's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word is self-approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences, let love heal all that's broken.
5.